We don't have Brian Haberman, but I think he had a conflict anyway, and he's at the end of this agenda. I think actually, right, he's at the end of the agenda because he does have a conflict. So we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Should we get going, Stig?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Welcome everyone to Pim and IETF112. Um, Here's the note. Well, you've seen this many times, I'm sure. It's easy to just gloss over this, but it's lots of good information here that I hope people have read. Especially the code of conduct, PCP 54, is maybe important. It's talking about how people should behave in working groups and be civil and focus on technical discussions and so on. And I think in PIM we are doing a great job, but in IETF in general, there's sometimes problems with having good civil discussions. Um, and there's other good information here as well. All right. Um, then for our agenda, uh, it's a bit smaller agenda this time. Um, so yeah, um, I'm gonna present a draft, and there's three other people presenting as well. Um, any comments on this agenda? So one thing to note here is there's no. We have had some presentations recently on multicast and source routing. There's none of that on. Well, there's one draft on this agenda, but there's a side meeting on Friday um, uh, to discuss those topics. It's not like an official IETF session, but it's an open meeting to everyone. So if you go to the main IETF page, there is a link to side meetings where you can find the agenda and so on. All right. So I want to go on with the working group status.
Stig, it might be just good if you sent that link to the PIM list as well.
Right. Yeah, sure. We can do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. For the working group status, there is the Pim Yang model, which has been in the RFC editors queue for a few years, it seems like, but that should be published in a few days now, from what I understand. It's like going through the final review right before publication. There's this IGMPMLD snipping Yang model. That's in the RFC editors queue as well. Let's see, did Alvaro join the queue?
Just for a second, he backed out.
Alvaro?
He sent a link to the chat. I think that's what he wanted to do.
Hey, no. I got in the queue. I got off because I saw AC. I thought he wanted to say something, and I think maybe we're going to say the same thing, or hopefully we're going to say the same thing. The Ping Yang model is in the RC editors queue. It has been there for a while. There was a very late bug found, not in the PIM module, but in the BFD module that PIM imports and etc. So that affects not only PIM, it affects OSPF and ISIS, which are also in the editor's queue. The bigger problem is that BFD was already published as an RFC. So we have been talking to all the authors to see what is the best way to fix this. Right now, Rob Wilton, who's the Ops AD, is talking to the Yang doctors to figure out what's the best way. What we think the cleanest way is to republish RFC 9127, I think is what the BFD module is. And the intent would be to fast track that as much as possible, because apparently there are no implementations, and then and have the other documents, including the PIM module, published as is, or as they are, right, with no changes, so that the only changes are in the BFD module. So in any case, that's a long story to say that it may not be in the next few days. It may be hopefully in the next few weeks. Hopefully not. It won't go in 2 months or anything like that. But I think I sent you guys an email at some point, maybe the last couple of days. I know it's been busy, but just take a look at that.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's not our fault. It's all these external references. All right. So we recently requested publication of the BFD point-to-multipoint use case that's being evaluated. Well, actually, it's I guess right before last IETF we requested that. Then more recently we requested publication for IGMP MLD extensions. So there was an AD, Alvaro reviewed that, and I'm one of the authors, and I submitted a new draft just now. So we'll see how that goes. Then we have 2 working group drafts now on DR improvement or backup DR or sticky DR behavior. So for this, we really need to make some progress, and we've been thinking about having how to have some good working group discussion on this. So I think for next IETF we should try to make some progress here, find some way to compare the approaches and have some discussion about how to proceed in the working group.
Yeah, because the authors are really driving these efforts. If they're not driving it, then it's going to kind of fall by the wayside. And we agreed at the beginning that we don't have to progress both drafts because they're similar. We talked about whether to merge or to leave them separate. And so far as a working group, we decided to adopt them separately. But if there's not progress on these drafts, then one of them or both of them are going to just kind of die off. And that's a good point, Alvaro.
Yeah, so ultimately we want to find out, what are the right technical solutions? Do we need one solution? Do we need 2 solutions? But what do we think is the best? And then based on that, we will decide, how to progress with each draft or both drafts or a new draft or whatever. The main thing is to come to agreement on the technical protocol aspect. Okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah. We also have IGMP MLD proxy Yang model. It passed working group last call, and I'll request publication sometime next week or so. Let's see. We also have null register packing. We had some issues at first with that. The quality wasn't good enough. It had some shortcomings. So it was returned to the working group, but after that we have had pretty good review by several working group members and discussions, and also by the routing directorate. So Mike is driving that, but I believe we are about to request publication for that. Then there's an assert packing draft. Yeah, most working group last call comments were addressed. I had just a few minor comments that I think should be addressed before publication. So once those are addressed, I'll go ahead and request publication of that as well. Then we have the point-to-point SR point-to-point multi-point policy, which we will discuss this meeting, and also we are doing some work on progressing IGMP-v3 and MLDV2 to Internet standard, and we'll have a presentation or discussion about that. The next one, actually, we want to consider progressing that as well. We discussed it the last meeting, but not this meeting. So we'll get back to that later. And then we have this Lisp joint prune extensions that was just adopted, and we also will discuss today.
One thing, Stig, we don't have on here is the draft that you recently called a adoption call for humans point-to-multipoint ping
Right.
draft, which it looks like we are good to adopt as far as consensus is concerned. However, we did receive a comment that it would be helpful in that draft, Human, if you're hearing this, that to specify whether this is focused on the SR MPLS data plane or the SRv6 data plane, and to specify that in the draft. And it was also requested that before we adopt it, that we ping the MPLS working group just as a CC, at least the chairs, so that they know that we're using their code point in this draft. So does that make sense, Human?
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. My apologies. I forgot to add that comment. I think we need to start with SRMPLS as the multi-point policy. Yeah, that was something I missed. I will definitely add that. Yeah.
That'd be great if you can update that, and then we will just Stig and I will do the thing that we need to do with the other working group chairs, and then we will likely make an adoption. We'll send you an email on the list that's saying, okay, it's go ahead and clear to submit as a PIM working group document now. Thank you.
Then we're working on updating the charter. Mike, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so just good segue is that we, as agreed with the spring chairs over the last year or two, we are doing SR point-to-multipoint work in PIM for a variety of reasons, including spring's just very busy and they prefer to have us do it. So we have adopted a draft, and it looks like we'll be adopting a second draft. There are other working groups working on point-to-multipoint related work as well, including BESS and IDR. They will likely keep that work, but there had been the discussion on whether we should take on that work as well to kind of make it consolidated into one working group. But for now, that work appears to be remaining in those other working groups, and it would be helpful if we at least be aware of those works, and Stig and I will do our best to make this working group aware of point-to-multipoint work going on in other working groups, so we can add our expertise and comments to help them to make sure it jives with our protocols. Any questions so far? Comments about that? Okay. So we will be sending, we were intending to have this done by this IETF, but because of what I just described, we were not able to solidify it. But so far we have this charter update. Everything's the same, except we did remove the first bullet with regards to management and Yang. And we removed that because, as far as we know, the Yang work is basically done. If that is that, does that sound correct to everybody? Okay, so nobody's jumping in, and you'll have a comment to opportunity to comment on the list too. So we kept the rest that is already in our charter, and then added this last bullet. So removed one bullet and added this one, which is to develop point-to-multipoint protocols. This includes SRv6 point-to-multipoint work per agreement with the Spring Working Group. And this may also require other point-to-multipoint protocols as requested from other working groups, which kind of keeps it open to, if they do want us to take on that work, that we can do so. So that's really the main thing that we wanted to make sure that we're all aware of, that it's already been an understanding that we're taking on this work specifically from Spring, but we wanted to make it more formal. And then the rest of the charter stands as is, with just a comment about aligning and working with other working groups. Any comments about this charter update? Yes, Alvaro.
So you already you mentioned some of the other work in other places, and that side meeting that's happening on Friday. So in general, the charter looks fine to me. I think that we're going to want to look at that other work on Friday, sync with all the other chairs to make sure that we all have all our ducks in a row. We do need better coordination across working groups, and that's one item that I think we are seeing very much right now with multicast, but that happens in other cases as well, where we see multiple types of work or multiple work that in this case refers to the architecture being worked here. We see work in IDR, we see work in BESS, we see work in PCE and other places that all refer to the architecture, but that are different solutions. So we want to make sure that we coordinate that. So as far as the charter, sure, I mean, we should probably start discussing that. We probably won't want to progress it until we have all the other ducks aligned, so that we do this just once, right? And not have to maybe do it twice or whatever. So at that time, and hopefully we can get that done in the next few weeks as well, so that we are all in agreement on what's going to happen and who's going to coordinate and all those other things.
Great. Thank you. Aijun?
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah. For SR-based P2MP solution, I think the SR-based multicast solution is different from the Pim protocol. So my recommendation is we can consider with the side meeting that will be held in Friday for the MSR side meeting. All the SR related multicast work, I think should be included in one new working group. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we can discuss that all at that side meeting. Thank you. Yes, Alvaro?
What Sting already said before, which is the side meeting is not an official IETF meeting, right? So you can discuss anything you want. Yep. We still need to agree in the IETF where and how anything is going to be done, right? Everyone knows here that we need to look at charters and everything else. If there is work which hasn't been presented anywhere in the IETF yet to be done in a new working group, sure, we can consider that. If the work, of course, overlaps with other things, we can do it in with other places. Just a reminder to everyone, this working group is called PIM, not because of the protocol, but because of how, what it says in the charter here on the slide, this is called Protocols for IP Multicast, not Protocol Independent Multicast. We chartered this, 4 or 5 years ago, to, on purpose, be able to increase the scope if necessary. Now, that doesn't mean that everything that has to do with multicast has to go here, right? It just means that we need to discuss that. And as with everything, things need to be presented in the IETF. We need to discuss charters, et cetera. Right? It's not just, unfortunately, not everything is automatic as it should be. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so there's been many comments about the side meeting. I think we should regularly do side meetings that just don't fit within a working group time period. Jake Holland had an interesting one last IETF. And I've already, from a side meeting that I attended this week, yesterday, on addressing, I already had an idea that I think I may want to present along with Dino on DLTs and IP multicast. So I think side meetings hopefully are become like a multicast related side meetings, hopefully become a regular thing that we do to kind of just brainstorm on things like this. So yeah, great. Any other comments before we move along to the rest of the agenda? Okay. I think Stig, you are up.
All right. So let's move on with the agenda. So let's see. Yeah, so just to remind people, this is the agenda. So I'll start out now with Lisp, and then that will be just a few minutes, and then Roman, you can go next after me. Okay, let's see. I'll find the slides here. All right, so this is the John Prune attributes for Lisp environments using underlay multicast. So there was a draft in the PIM working group some years back defining these attributes. The only thing is that the attributes could be used to specify a unicast destination for like ingress replication, but as defined, they couldn't be used for underlay multicast. So what this draft is doing is basically saying that you can also specify a multicast address as a destination address for Lisp and cap. So this draft was presented in, let me go to the next slide. This draft was presented in both PIM and Lisp last IETF, and it was agreed with Lisp working group that the work could be done in PIM, just like last time, but with review by the Lisp working group. Yeah, it has recently been adopted. I'm one of the authors, and it's a pretty simple document. We authors believe that the main thing we need to work on is the security considerations. Otherwise, we feel it's already fairly complete. Okay. Yeah, so let's see. Looking for... Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of slides here that can remind people what this is about. But I feel like I already said basically what there is to say. It's about getting Lisp across a multicast core network, and we need to specify the underlay multicast address. And we're basically using that existing TLV, just specifying that a multicast group can be used. That's all we are doing in this draft. Yeah, we're hoping to get some comments, review from the working group, and we will work on the security considerations, and hopefully we can do a last call soon. But yeah, hoping by next IETF that we can get some comments and hopefully be in good shape by next IETF. That's all I had. Any questions?
Can you put your PIM hat back on? So, just from while we were talking about PIM rechartering, do we need to add anything about Lisp related work, or do you think this is just kind of a one-off? We do have in our charter at the end we mentioned working with other working groups, including Lisp. Do you think that's good enough for now?
Right. So in this particular case, the reason we're doing it in PIM is that it has to do with that PIM join attribute, and that is in our current charter. So I think we are good there.
Great.
There's been some multicast work done in the Lisp working group as well, but it doesn't involve PIM in any way. So that was done purely in the Lisp working group.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So next up is Huma, multi-point policy. Yeah, I'll drive the slides here. Just tell me when to go to the next slide, please.
If you're talking, Human, we can't hear you.
My apologies. So for whatever reason, my browser keeps reloading this web page. So hopefully I'm not going to drop off, but if I did, that's the reason. So quickly, we wanted to give a quick update on the point-to-multipoint policy.
So I guess we're ready for the next slide.
By the way, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. So as of now, the replication segment is obviously adopted by SR. And Pim, this working group, has adopted the point-to-multipoint policy. I'll give a little bit of update what has changed in that draft. I'm not going to talk too much about the Yang. There hasn't been too much churn on the Yang, and eventually I think next IETF and present them to the appropriate working group based on the Yang. So that's one thing we had talked about. Unfortunately, I haven't done it so far. I'll do that for next IETF. When it comes to the best in VPN, EVPN, SR point-to-multipoint policy, so that's the BGP signaling layer for the services. That work is somewhat complete. We can signal the services over a point-to-multipoint policy between two PEs. From the PCE point of view and nailing down the point-to-multipoint tree on the routers, we went through some changes in the draft. I'm not going to get into the detail. There was an adoption call, which had a majority and it should be adopted by November 25th, unless if there are any other comments that would come in. I don't foresee that, so it should be a smooth sailing. The next one is the IDR. for SR point to multi-point policy. So basically what this is BGP SRTE, trying to nail down the tree. Obviously we have BGP into the routers. We try to keep it.
Hey, Human, just it's not just me. Like every minute or so, your audio just disappears for like 10 seconds. So I don't know if there's anything you can do on your end, especially since you're giving another presentation after this one. So just
Yeah, maybe I'll get to my 5G network if it's any better than this.
like right now, you
Yeah,
sound
I
great.
mean,
It just comes and goes.
if this is not useful and I keep disappearing, I suggest to go to the next presentation. I don't know whether everything is.
Yeah, we didn't hear any of that the last 20 seconds.
Okay, so go to the
You're
next
back now.
presentation. I'll talk back.
Okay.
Next slide.
The next presentation.
Oh, next presentation. Okay.
Yeah, Bob, I had that same problem with Bluetooth. I'm using hardwired just for that very reason, unfortunately. So we're ready when you are, Human. But take your time if you're figuring out your audio.
Yeah, I think maybe he reloaded. I don't see him on the list here right now.
Yeah. Let's give him a second. If he doesn't come back, we can go to the next presentation on extension
Sure.
source management
Yeah.
and then come back to him. Yeah, let's do that if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Um,
is it pronounced Wanan? Lee for IGMP yeah, extension.
You hear me?
Yeah.
yes, we hear you.
Hello everyone, I am Huanan Li from China Telecom. I am going to introduce our updates. Next page, please. In the last discussion, a similar draft is mentioned, named Multicast Source Notification of Interest Protocol (MSNIP). MSNIP is designed around the premise that you want to minimize source when no receiver listening. MSNIP focus primarily on data flow control. Our document aims at management of multicast source and related service, including control of multicast source access, which can improve the security of multicasts, control of data flow, which is consistent with the idea of MSNIP, management of monicast statistics with controller, and other uses can be extended based on source registration. In addition, both MSNIP and our document is designed for SSM scenario. If these solutions are to be applied in ASM scenario, maybe other multicast protocols such as protocol-independent multicast need to be considered together. We have made some updates to our document in reference to comments in last discussing and the process of MSNIP. Next page, thank you. Next page, thank you. Oh, sorry. The first is update the first update is update for multicast source registration process. After receiving the registration message from the source system and authenticating the router will send multicast source registration messages with valid registration status response to the source system and inform the source systems that the requests are approved. Then the router will trigger a timer and maintain the registration status for the source systems until the timer expires. The source systems need periodically send registration message to the routers to inform the router that the multicast source is alive. Then routers will refresh the timer of the registration status. If the router receives multicast data from the multicast source, they will refresh the timer. During the data delivery, the source systems does not have to send the registration message periodically. When the timer expires or the validated periodical registration expires, the router will release the registration status and send a multicast source registration message with invalid status to the source system to inform it. Next page, thank you. For multicast source registration message, the update is the credential length is extended to 16 bits. In addition, the end timestamp is replaced by the duration. The start time and the duration are not related to the timer mentioned in the process. Start timestamps indicates the start time when the multicast source can provide a service for multicast groups. Before this time, router don't send multicast data notification message to the source system. Duration indicates the maximum duration that the multicast source can provide service for the multicast group in a valid registration request. Next page, thank you. For all message defined in this document, the address type field was removed. If this message are used to IGMP message, the corresponding address are IPv4 addresses. If this message are used to MLD messages, the corresponding addresses are IPv6 addresses. Next page, thank you. We add a new section to introduce use cases and place multicast source management for PCE-based beer solution in this section. Such as in SDN scenario, the unified management of multicast information based on the controller, source access authentication, data flow transmission control, and receiver information management can be realized, and the ability of multicast network service awareness can be improved. Other use cases will be added in future updates. That's the main content of our presentation. Any comments on our work are welcomed. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Are you requesting anything of the working group at this time? Other than comments? Stig or anybody?
Well, I can mention that, yeah, I joined as a co-author, and I have some contents that I plan to add on use cases, and yeah, some more work to be done.
Okay. Last ITF you mentioned MSNP. Was there ever like a comparison to see if the work done in the past applies to this?
It's this, at least from protocol point of view, I feel the main thing is this, basically that the source can notify that it wants to send multicast, and that there's a way for the router to respond back to the source with some information, right, about receivers and so on. And that's common in both of these drafts, both MSNP and this draft. But the motivation is different, and yeah, I think we have several use cases that are not mentioned back in the MSNP draft. There's some differences too, like this draft talks about there's like credentials, and you can announce like start time and so on. That was not there in MSNP.
Okay. Jun, do you have a comment?
Hello? Yeah, we have compared with MSIP draft and this draft, and we think their aim is similar. Both want to control the behavior of the source, multicast source. I think we can cooperate under the use case that mentioned in the MSIP in the later application. So we also under the stick as a closure to put for this draft. And we in the current update version, we have also adopted the comment from stick for the encoding of the message, and for the timer control, for the register timer control. Such as, okay.
Okay. AC?
Cisco systems. Can you hear me? Yes, you can.
We can now.
Now, yeah, it asked me to allow every time I turn my audio on. I don't know why. The primary motivation for this would be, one, you can do credential validation of the sources, and number two, you can tell the sources to quit sending when there are absolutely no receivers. Is that what it is? Are those the two main advantages why you'd want to go through this complexity? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I think you are correct. The main proposal of this draft is to the first is to authenticate the multicast source. We want to deploy the multicast in the controlled manner. So not any source can send the multicast to the network. This is the first first aim. The second aim is want to feedback some information to the receiver. I think this is popular in the current multicast application. So this is the main aim of this protocol extension. Okay. Also, we can add other capabilities as mentioned in the MSIP later.
Yeah, from the way I see it is, we had the main complexity in multicast is often this source discovery, and we have lots of different ways of doing that. And it's usually been like some dynamic discovery mechanism, but we can simplify discovery a lot if we actually have some signaling of the source rather than having like data-driven signaling.
Okay, thank you. I guess maybe you could look at things where you eliminate the RP and go right to source specific with this, right?
Sorry, I didn't get the last.
You could look at flows where you don't RP-less flows, where you just have the registration of the sources and the receivers and don't even bother with ASM, right?
Right.
I think that would be more deterministic, I think. I agree. Thanks.
All right, anything else on this chapter?
Yeah.
Yes, Satoshi.
I didn't read this draft, so I may miss the point, but why this draft wants to use IGMP or MLD for source discovery? So maybe the author next time may clarify the more difference about between MSNIP and this draft, because in fact I couldn't understand the clear difference between MSNIP and this draft. But in any case, so why you need to use IGMP or MLE? Because IGMP MLE is usually or in general used for the receiver protocol. So why you need to extend IGMP MLE for source discovery? And for the source discovery, if we talk about a very old protocol, we already have SAP. Of course, SAP is not perfect protocol, so that's why maybe recently no one has been using SAP, but SAP itself can become something like a source notification. So you can extend SAP even if you want to enhance some credential approach for source discovery. So my question is why you need to use or need to extend IGMP or MLE.
Go ahead and answer that, Aijun. Yep,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I try to answer. I'm not aware with the set protocol as just you mentioned. The reason that we select IGMP or MVD is the IGMP and MVD is the protocol between the host and its first router. You know, as I respond to I say, the main protocol of the main purpose of this router is to authenticate the multicast source, not the finding source within the network. You know, so to authenticate the source, it is must depend on the protocol at the layer between the host and its first router. So IGMP and MB is the best selection for such proposal. You know, we don't want to solve the source discovery within the network. As mentioned by Hanan, that currently we focus on the SSM scenario. So there is no RT within the network. Okay.
Lenny?
Yeah, it seems like this idea of kind of request to send, where the sender actually requests to send something into the network. It feels like this is an old idea, and I remember it being abandoned a long time ago. But I remember MSNIP not getting much traction. I think I'm not old enough to remember why RTS died. I think that might have been a little bit before my time, but I'd be curious if anybody can remember, this isn't the first time that this concept has come out. It was an idea from a long time ago. And does anybody remember why it was abandoned and decided not to pursue? Or is everybody else too young to remember?
Right. Yeah, at least I would say I don't remember. But at least the main challenge I see is, deployment. It's very hard to get hosts upgraded to support something like this, or even, like going from IGMP v2 to v3 or stuff took years and years. But at least I imagine it could be useful in some special, I don't know, some special cases. Maybe not like, like generic Windows or Linux, but maybe, let's say, cameras with IP support, or I don't know, it could be more specialized use cases perhaps. But at least that's a big challenge, is how do you get something like this into like host stacks in general.
Yeah, Brian Haberman probably would remember. But
And I would guess Greg Shepard, were he here, would have an opinion, a strong
yeah,
opinion.
probably so. Yeah, go ahead.
I think for because we want to make the multicast in one controlled manner, so we think the source must be authenticated and controlled. So it is different from the start point of the MSNIP. So I think we can, and the source is the number of the multicast is limited. So I think we can the update of them is maybe acceptable. Okay, it is not like the receiver side. So I think we can put forward the implementation of the multicast source for such protocol extension. Okay, this is our main aim for the design of this protocol.
Great. Thank you. I suggest we communicate more on the list and not wait till the next IETF to present this, and let's see what people think. Any other comments before we go back to Human? All right. Human, are you back? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So Pim Lite, if you can go to the next slide, please. So the entire idea was born based on the last call that we had on the beer pin signaling.
It's breaking up.
Yeah.
But you're back now. I'll just say something when you break up and then just pause.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe I need to talk
Are you unwired or?
I am unwired.
Okay.
There's construction around, so maybe they cut something or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
So in the beer pin signaling, we use the pim join and prunes to signal the.
You're breaking up.
In Mike, I don't think it's working because I hear my own voice and it keeps breaking up.
Right.
I apologize. I think I'm just gonna take away time from working group.
We can hear you well most of the time. It just break up a little occasionally.
All right, I can continue.
Yeah, just power through it, and we'll just we'll get the gist of it.
It seems like your first and last sentences are audible. It's all your middle sentences that aren't. So stick with first and last sentences.
Okay. So basically, we want join prunes without the Pim hello to be accepted from other routers, other peer routers. So including the assert messages. So this is what we're going to call Pim Lite. You don't need to bring up Pim adjacency between routers directly connected. Without having the Pim hello, you can accept the joins and prune messages to signal the multicast states. Next slide, please. So what becomes the limitation of this Pimlight protocol, if you will? So the first thing is that obviously you cannot discover Pim neighbors. DR selection, so there is no DR priority options. And obviously, since there is no Pim hello, you don't create a general purpose state for your neighboring Pim routers on the local router. I mean, these are the main limitations of this Pim Lite, just simply because there is no Pim hello between adjacent routers. Next slide. Perfect. So again, it's Pim with 0 calories. We all know that Pim is complicated protocol, which some networks or interface types might not be able to support or are not optimized for the Pim protocol, full Pim protocol itself. In the beer network, where you have beer packets going between two Pim domain, really the beer encapsulation is not optimized for sending Pim hellos and bringing up full Pim adjacency between the two Pim domains, if you will. So this Pim Lite plays very nicely with a of networks that are not optimized for Pim as well, which this Pim Lite can be used in. Next slide, please. So obviously, we are looking for comments. We want to make sure that this draft is bulletproof, that we are covering all cases, corner cases, for having a Pim Lite protocols between the comments came in. Not sure how much of that you got, but that's it.
We got a lot. Thanks for powering through that. So one thing that we will... go ahead, Alvaro. Let's see. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. But I haven't read the document, but can we? What you're defining here is really a different type of interface. Can we actually call the draft not just Pim Lite, but Pim Lite interface or something like that, so that it gives the idea of what we're really specifying in it? So please let's take care of that before we go further with anything else. Thanks. And by the way, thanks for doing this work.
Yeah, thank you. I have no problem calling it Pimlight interface. The only thing we need to think about is that there are logical interfaces or physical interfaces or even beer. You got that last comment. So what I was saying is that beer doesn't have a logical PIM interface. It's really, we figure out where the source is and where is the last beer router on the path to the source. And we send the join via the next beer edge router. So I have no problem calling it interface. Comment. So I said I don't have no problem calling it a Pimlight interface.
Yeah, we don't know what you're saying, but I bet it's important. Let me just chime in right now, Human, and say that one thing that is unique about this draft is, being that Stig and I are both on it, is that we can't call for adoption of this draft. So we would need to have a shepherd be as if they're a chair for this particular draft and do the calling for adoptions and follow this draft throughout the life of the draft if it were to be adopted, and do the working group blast call and all that. So and we can pull the list and see, or just find someone and ask them if they do it. But right now, would anybody be willing to fill that role for this draft? Okay. So we'll find somebody. So we can't ask for an adoption right now. Any other comments? Human, do you want to try again? Anybody?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sandy. You're it. Appreciate your helping out with that. Well, Stig and I will talk to you more about that via email. All right, so we have that volunteer. Great. Are we ready for Brian now? I don't think he's here, though.
Yeah, don't see him.
It may still be a little bit too early. We're kind of ahead.
Yeah, Anuj, are you interested in or able to present? Or yeah, Anuj, I'm not hearing you.
Have you been on any of the calls, Stig, enough to give an overview or not?
Yeah, I was checking with Anuj here. If he could do it, he has some audio issues trying to rejoin. But yeah, if neither he or Brian is here in a couple of minutes, I guess we can sort of discuss it, at least start discussing it without them.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, hi, it's working now. Great.
Yeah. Hi. So this presentation is for advancing IGMP v3 and MLD v2 to internet standard. So in last IETF 111, we also presented this. At that time, we asked for adoption, and now it is a working group draft. So we submitted the first version with some changes before the cutoff. And for both 3376 for IGMP v3 and 3810 for MLD v2. So I can maybe briefly talk about some of the changes which we incorporated. So for 3376, one of the changes which we did, like recently there was a query over the working group alias regarding the query election process, which was being seen in like one of the implementations where we don't have a clear way of identifying whether which query should be used for the election process. So for more details, we can look at the emails in the working group, and so that was one of the issues which got incorporated in 3376. Second thing was the MLD messages being sent with link local addresses, and this is for 3810. And one of the erratas which was filed against 3810 MLD v2 was errata 4773, where it talks about the missing RESTV field. So that also got incorporated in version 1. And one of the old erratas which was filed against 3376 is 4375, where the older version query at present timeout definition itself has some discrepancy. So this is also being incorporated. And I guess there is another thing missing. So there is another errata which is like kind of editorial, which is 5375 against IGMPv3 3376 RFC. So that is also got incorporated in version 1 of 3376 BIS. So we are using GitHub, and all these issues could be tracked here. So all these issues which I just talked about, they are present in GitHub, and they're right now marked as closed. So next slide, please. Stick. Next slide. Yeah. So some of the open issues which we have right now is like, do we want to move RFCs 1112 with IGMP V1 and MLD V1 to historic? So this is also one of the questions which we asked in the last IETF as well. And second thing is like RFC 4604 SSM for IGMP and MLD. So do we want to incorporate that in the while we are moving with the advancement of this internet standard? So we want to incorporate 4604 in that. And another question is like how we want to define the relationship with the new PIM IGMP MLD extension of these BIS drafts. And I guess last one is the errata 6725, which is recently being filed. And Brian, I think he's already working on it. So there is some email communication happening over the working group as well. So these are the current open issues.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments on that. So for the IGMP MLD extension, at least after polling the working group, I think there's agreement that we don't need to make it an official update of the IGMP MLD RFCs. So I don't think it should be an issue.
Sure.
For to make the right decision on the first two, I think we need to have more details. I think, and it's probably good to send some emails to the working group mailing list and basically outline a bit more what you should consider. Like, for instance, for 4604, like, what is the actual text that, what's the scope of the work? What text do we want to actually copy from 4604? Yeah, it's kind of hard to, without having all those details and maybe doing some thinking to answer these questions, right? So getting some discussion on the list would be great.
I guess for second one, while in the internal meeting, we do identify what sections we would be borrowing from 4604. I think, it would be better if we put all those things in email and get along on the group.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. And regarding the first one, is it like we should be asking this thing over the group or moving the RFCs to the older one to start?
All right. I think it would be good to send an email to the Pim mailing list for this one as well. So maybe send separate emails for each bullet point, kind of try to get input.
Sure. Yeah. I guess this is the pretty much update. Any questions or comments are welcome. Yeah, so
Yeah,
this is pretty much from my side. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for presenting this. I know you were not that prepared for it, and Brian is not here, so I'm glad you could do it.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's the last we had on our agenda. Anyone have anything else we should discuss, or guess we might be done?
Thank you. That was a good meeting. Appreciate your time and catch you guys throughout the week.
Yeah.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, all. See you next time. Bye.